Welcome to Malvern Books. Thank you so much for coming tonight and to our monthly novel night here, which we've been doing for a while, and it's really a lot of fun, to have novelists come and read from their work once a month and stuff like that, because it's a dime a dozen. You get them all the time. So novelists are something special. We gave them a goodie. So, remember there's snacks that are back there. There's one of the perks of Novel Night is that all the fiction in the store is 20% off. So any of the fiction you want to buy is 20% off. So, without further ado, we'll get started. Our first reader will be Elizabeth Thomas. Elizabeth earned a bachelor's and master's degree in English language and literature from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. In 1996, she moved to the Austin area, and worked for Barrett Kendall Publishing, and continued to work on her own writing projects. In 2005, she graduated as a registered nurse from Austin Community College. Elizabeth has won prizes in numerous writing competitions and has had a short story published in Mytholog. Her full-length play, The Circle, has received a stage reading in Birmingham, Michigan, and a full production as a special event by the Way Off-Broadway Community Theater in Leander, Texas. That's why I emphasize Way. She'll be reading from her debut novel, Arden's Act, out from Keith Publications.
So the part that I'm going to read for you is a little bit after the beginning of the book, so just so you know what's going on. She's arrived in London, she's fleeing her Puritan stepfather who molests her, and she wants to be one of the first actresses of the London stage. This is the time period when they're just first letting women on stage, because in Shakespeare's time, just guys played all the roles, and she's just been attacked in the street, but she has gotten inside the theater company to audition. And they tell writers never have a scene where the main character looks in the mirror and describes herself, but she's getting costumed at the theater, so she has a really good excuse to look in the mirror. The transformation Arden saw in the large framed wall mirror bordered on the remarkable. The costume Millie had chosen for her, a bright yellow silk, made her green eyes bigger and brighter, like emeralds, he had said. She thought the squared neckline extremely low. It exposed much more of her breasts than made her comfortable, almost all but the nipples. Better than looking like a Puritan, she told herself. Her black stockings had been replaced by white, and her plain black boots replaced by dainty slippers with heels covered over in the same yellow silk as her gown. At Brian's urging, Millie had secured some of the company's paste jewelry for her. A strand of glass diamonds hung around her neck, while a few more dangled from her ears. Even though she'd brought some stunning pieces she'd inherited with her to London, she preferred not to show any wealth in strange surroundings. At any rate, Arden had not been so well attired since her father had been alive, and then she had been a mere child, unaccustomed to the fashions of a young lady. Treadwell would not recognize me, but Papa would. He must have known I'd look like this one day. Her father, who had selected plays for her to read ever since she had learned her letters, would also have understood her becoming an actress. Never mind that it was a brand new calling, and certainly rarely contemplated by a woman of her family background. Arden smiled when Brian led her to Davenant, even though they caught the company's owner in the midst of saying, "She'd better be a good one. I've already looked at a horde of chits today at the regular time." A little disappointed when Brian did not offer his employer a vigorous reply, Arden nevertheless stood straight and tall before Davenant. She tried not to stare at his false nose, the flesh beneath, rumor whispered, ruined by syphilis. She readied herself to launch into Juliet's final scene when Davenant asked her for a sample of her talents. Instead, he cheerfully commanded, "Show me your legs." Memories of Buckingham lifting her skirts chilled her, but Courtney's words came back to Arden and oddly calmed her. Actresses merely serve as ornaments. Well, if she had to make her beginning that way, so be it. She could convince Davenant and the others of her talent once hired. Cheeks flushing, she obeyed his request. Fortunately, she knew she had nothing to be ashamed of. The clingy white silk stockings only enhanced the natural shapeliness of her long legs. Davenant gave Arden a quick nod of approval. "Dance," he told her. "But there's no music," Arden protested. Not to mention she'd not had any dancing lessons since Treadwell had married her mother. "May I have one of the musicians come over with his instrument?" She gestured to a group of men in the corner whose tuning and practicing did not yet amount to melody, but only added to the general din. "Anyone can dance to music," replied Davenant. "We separate the girls from the women by seeing who can dance without. Go on, dance." For a moment, Arden stood nonplussed. She had no partner. Should she borrow Brian for what she remembered of a stately pavan? Then she recalled the time her father had returned from aiding the Duke of Ormond in Ireland, how he had quickly taught her an Irish dance, while his valet, Jack Clark, had played the fiddle. Oh, but Jack could play too, loud and furious and full of spirit. Still holding up her skirts, Arden concentrated on the memory of Jack's music and the steps her father had shown her. She began to dance, prancing and whirling despite the heeled slippers. When the old strains died in her head, Arden gracefully halted, breathing with her effort. The din continued in the background, but Brian, Millie, Davenant, and a tall, dark-eyed man in a powdered wig who had come to stand beside them stayed utterly silent. Then Brian began to clap and whistle, and Davenant, beaming at the other man, asked him, "Well, Betterton, what do you think of her?" Betterton? Arden had just danced before Thomas Betterton, the premier actor of the London stage. Thank the dear Lord I did not know it ahead of time, she thought. "She'll do as a dancer," agreed the actor. "Right," said Davenant, "but what can she do with a piece? Do you have anything prepared with you that you'd like to recite for us?" he asked Arden. "Juliet's death," she announced. "Oh, that again," said Davenant. Arden paused to feel the scene, pushing her awareness of the importance of her audience and Davenant's lack of enthusiasm from her mind. She began to see Friar Lawrence before her, began feeling Romeo's agonizing loss in her heart. She waved the priest away with a graceful hand and wailed, "Go, get thee hence, for I will not away." Arden lowered her gaze purposefully to the floor, seeing the pale corpse of a handsome young man stretched beneath her. In the intensity of her mood, she did not recognize the finely chiseled features of the stranger who had rescued her outside the theater. "What's here?" Arden asked softly. "A cup, closed in my true love's hand? Poison, I see, has been his timeless end." She bent to take the imagined vessel from the imagined dead hand, turning it upside down before her face. "Oh, churl, drunk all and left no friendly drop to help me after?" Arden exclaimed, casting down the cup. She began bending again to the fallen man, kneeling beside the body as she quickly affirmed, "I will kiss thy lips, haply some poison yet doth hang upon them, to make me die with a restorative." She tenderly touched her lips to her vision. "Thy lips are warm," she said sorrowfully. Then she snapped her head around, looking behind her. "Yea, noise?" Arden queried. She returned her gaze to the body, searching for something. She found her answer. "Oh, happy dagger!" Arden cried, grabbing the weapon strapped to her beloved still form. "This is thy sheath," she hissed, plunging it above her bosom. "There rust and let me die," she breathed. letting her eyes fall shut and collapsing completely limp on the floor. "Bravo!" shouted Brian, helping Arden up. "Oh yes," agreed Millie, "you're ever so good, miss. I could almost see the cup, the dagger, and the poor dead lover." Arden flushed with the praise. She had given one of her best performances, better than the rehearsals alone in her room after Treadwell had gone out and couldn't possibly hear. "What do you think?" Davenant asked Betterton again. "Has to work on her projection. No idea what she'd do with the rhymed couplets, but there's a certain amount of raw talent. She'll do for a bit player," concluded Betterton. Considered Davenant. He crossed to Arden and took a length of her dark hair in his hand. "Particularly if you dye this blonde. It's the style now, you know." Arden flushed again, but not with pleasure this time. Certain raw talent, bit player, dye my hair blonde. But she pushed her pride aside. Far more important she'd be part of the Duke's company. In time she could show them. In time she might be playing opposite Betterton himself. She had almost started to nod her acceptance at Davenant when she heard his voice again. "Absolutely not, Davenant. You will not have her mar that mahogany beauty merely to make her look like every other false blonde on your stage. Give her a part with her real hair. Rayburn's wench is starting to show too much for decency in the servant's role, so let this one play it. I'll be there watching this afternoon, and if you have her blonde, Davenant, I'll give all my patronage to Killigrew and the King's Men." As he spoke, Courtenay strode up to stand with Davenant and Betterton. With a start, Arden realized she had projected his face, albeit a bit less mature, onto her Romeo. Except, of course, this man's face appeared very much alive. His dark eyes again looked at her with frank appreciation. He smiled broadly as well, showing off a set of fine white teeth. "Very well," agreed Davenant. "Lord Robert is not to be questioned in matters of theatrical taste. You may have the part, mistress." "What did you say her name was again, Brian?" "Arden West," Arden announced before Brian could say it for her. She'd done it. She would walk the stage that afternoon.